The evening cleaning shift at Madison Elementary was usually quiet. Peaceful even. Robert Hayes had worked these halls for 8 years, long enough to know every creaky floorboard and every light switch that needed an extra push. At 45, he moved with the steady rhythm of someone who took pride in his work, who understood that a clean, safe environment helped children learn and grow. Robert had a special appreciation for this school. His own daughter, Sarah, had struggled with learning differences when she was younger. He remembered those difficult parent-teacher conferences, the frustration of watching a bright child feel diminished by traditional teaching methods. It had taken patience, understanding, and teachers willing to see beyond the surface to help Sarah flourish. Tonight, as Robert pushed his cleaning cart down the main hallway, he noticed a light still on in the library. Through the glass doors, he could see Dr. Amanda Sterling, the school's principal, sitting with a young girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old. The child had curly brown hair and wore a blue denim dress over a gray shirt. She was holding something, a small stuffed animal that looked like a giraffe. Robert recognized the scene, a parent conference that had run late. He'd seen Dr. Sterling many times over the years, always impeccably dressed in her professional suits, always maintaining the authoritative presence that came with her position. She was known for running a tight ship, for having high standards and little tolerance for disruption. As Robert began cleaning the hallway outside the library, he couldn't help but notice something unusual about the little girl. She wasn't making eye contact with her mother, wasn't responding to the visual cues that Dr. Sterling was giving her. Instead, the child seemed to be listening intently, tilting her head slightly as if straining to catch every sound. Robert had seen this before. During his years at the school, he'd learned to recognize the subtle signs, the way some children navigated the world differently. This little girl, Dr. Sterling's daughter, he realized, was likely blind or had severe visual impairment. The realization stopped Robert in his tracks. He'd always assumed Dr. Sterling's sometimes rigid approach to school policies came from a place of inflexibility, but watching her now, seeing her gentle patience with her daughter, he understood something different. Sometimes people built walls not out of coldness, but out of protection. As Robert continued his work, he noticed the girl drop her stuffed giraffe. It rolled a few feet away, and she immediately began searching for it with her hands, a look of distress crossing her small features. Dr. Sterling was reviewing paperwork and hadn't noticed. Without thinking, Robert quietly entered the library. He picked up his small LED flashlight, the one he used to check dark corners and behind furniture, and gently aimed its beam at the fallen giraffe. Not at the child, but creating a small circle of light around the toy so it might catch any peripheral vision she might have. "Your giraffe is right here, sweetheart," Robert said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "About 2 steps to your left." The little girl turned toward his voice, and something remarkable happened. Her face lit up with a smile. Not because she could see the light clearly, but because someone had understood what she needed. She found her giraffe and clutched it close. "Thank you," she whispered back. Dr. Sterling looked up sharply, and when she saw Robert with the flashlight, her expression changed immediately. Her protective instincts flared. All she saw was a stranger shining a light at her vulnerable daughter. "What are you doing?" Dr. Sterling demanded, rising from her chair. "Why are you shining that at my daughter?" Robert immediately lowered the flashlight. "Dr. Sterling, I was just helping her find her—" "You were shining a bright light directly at a blind child," Dr. Sterling interrupted, her voice rising with anger and fear. "Do you have any idea how inappropriate that is?" "How cruel." "Mama, he was helping me," the little girl said quietly. "He helped me find Gerald." She held up her giraffe, but Dr. Sterling was beyond hearing her daughter's words. Years of protecting her child from thoughtless comments and inappropriate behavior had created an automatic defensive response. All she could see was another person who didn't understand, who treated her daughter's blindness as something to gawk at or fix with misguided gestures. "I want you to stay away from my daughter," Dr. Sterling said firmly. "And first thing Monday morning, I'll be discussing this incident with the district office. Your employment here is terminated." Robert felt his heart sink. "Dr. Sterling, please, I understand why you're upset, but if you'd just let me explain." There's nothing to explain. You're dismissed. Please leave the building immediately. The little girl looked confused and sad. Mama, why are you angry? The nice man helped me. Emma, we don't need to discuss this now, Dr. Sterling said, her tone softening only for her daughter. Let's gather your things and go home. Robert packed his cleaning supplies in silence, his mind racing. He understood Dr. Sterling's reaction. He really did. As a parent, he knew the fierce protectiveness that came with watching your child navigate a world that didn't always understand or accommodate their needs. But he also knew what he'd seen. A moment of connection, of one person helping another in the simplest, kindest way possible. Over the weekend, Robert couldn't stop thinking about little Emma Sterling. He thought about her smile when she'd found her giraffe, the way she'd immediately trusted his voice, her confusion when her mother became angry. He thought about Sarah and all the people who had helped her along the way, teachers who saw past her learning differences to her bright, creative mind, friends who accepted her exactly as she was. On Monday morning, Robert wasn't surprised when his supervisor called to inform him officially that his employment had been terminated. What did surprise him was the knock on his apartment door that same afternoon. Dr. Sterling stood in his hallway and she looked different. Gone was the authoritative principal's demeanor. Instead, she looked like what she truly was, a tired mother carrying the weight of protecting her child in a world that often misunderstood. Mr. Hayes, she said quietly, may I come in? I owe you an explanation and an apology. Robert stepped aside, gesturing her into his small but tidy living room. Family photos lined the mantel, pictures of Sarah at various ages, including some from her elementary school years when she'd struggled so much. Dr. Sterling noticed the photos immediately. Your daughter? Sarah. She's 22 now, working as a graphic designer. But elementary school was challenging for her. She had dyslexia and some processing issues that made traditional learning difficult. Dr. Sterling nodded slowly. Then you understand. I understand the fear, Robert said gently. I understand wanting to protect your child from people who don't see their worth. But Dr. Sterling, what I did Friday night, I wasn't trying to fix Emma or treat her as different. I was simply helping a child find her toy, the same way I would help any child. Dr. Sterling was quiet for a long moment. Emma has been asking about you all weekend. She keeps saying the nice man with the light helped her, and she doesn't understand why I was upset. She's never taken to a stranger so quickly. Children often sense intentions better than adults do, Robert said. They know when someone sees them as a person first and everything else second. I spoke with some of the teachers this morning, Dr. Sterling continued. They told me about your reputation here, how you've helped countless children over the years. Mrs. Patterson mentioned that you always seem to know exactly which students needed an extra moment of patience. Which ones were having a difficult day? Robert smiled slightly. When Sarah was struggling, I learned to recognize the signs. Children who are fighting battles, whether with learning differences, family troubles, or physical challenges, they often wear it in small ways. A little extra kindness goes a long way. Dr. Sterling reached into her purse and pulled out a small piece of paper. Emma drew this for you, well, her version of drawing. She felt the shapes with raised markers. The paper showed simple, raised lines that formed what might have been a person and a giraffe, with a small circle that could represent light. At the bottom, in a child's handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for helping me find Gerald." Robert felt his eyes fill with tears. She drew this? She insisted. She said you were kind and that kindness should be thanked. Dr. Sterling paused. I realize now that what I saw as inappropriate behavior was actually exactly what Emma needed. Someone who didn't treat her blindness as something tragic or limiting, but simply as one aspect of who she is. Emma is a remarkable little girl, Robert said. She navigates the world with such confidence and grace. You've raised her to be strong and independent. Sometimes I think I've raised her to be too independent, Dr. Sterling admitted. I've been so focused on protecting her from pity or condescension that I may have prevented her from experiencing simple kindness from strangers. Your gesture, It wasn't about her blindness at all, was it? It was about a child who needed help finding her favorite toy, Robert said simply. That's all. If she'd been sighted and dropped her giraffe in a dark corner, I would have done the same thing. Used my light to help her see where it had gone. Dr. Sterling was quiet for several minutes, processing this perspective. Finally, she looked up at Robert with genuine remorse in her eyes. I've made a terrible mistake, she said. I let my fears and past experiences cloud my judgment. I saw a threat where there was only kindness. I accused you of insensitivity when you were showing exactly the kind of awareness and compassion that Emma needs to experience from the world. Dr. Sterling, please, she interrupted. Let me finish. I spoke with the district office this morning and explained that there had been a misunderstanding. Your termination has been reversed, if you're willing to return. But more than that, I'd like to ask if you'd consider a different position. Robert looked at her with surprise. We have an opening for a student services aide, Dr. Sterling explained. Someone who works directly with children who need extra support, who helps them navigate the school day, who notices when they're struggling and steps in to help. The pay is better, the hours are regular, and I think you'd be exceptional at it. You're offering me a promotion? I'm offering you a chance to do what you've apparently been doing all along, seeing children as individuals and responding to their needs with kindness and understanding. The only difference would be that it would be official. And Emma has specifically requested that you be her aide. Robert felt a warmth spread through his chest. She requested me? She said, and I quote, "The nice man with the light understands that I can do things, I just do them differently." Can he help other kids understand that too? The wisdom of children, Robert thought. Sometimes they see the world more clearly than the adults trying to protect them. I'd be honored, Robert said quietly. Dr. Sterling smiled, the first genuine smile he'd ever seen from her. Thank you, Mr. Hayes, and thank you for seeing my daughter. Really seeing her, as the capable, wonderful child she is. As Dr. Sterling prepared to leave, she turned back to Robert. I learned something important this weekend. Emma doesn't need me to shield her from the world. She needs me to help her find the people in the world who will see her strength, not her limitations. People like you. 3 months later, Robert Hayes was settling into his new role as student services aide at Madison Elementary. He worked with children facing all kinds of challenges, learning differences, physical limitations, emotional struggles. But most importantly, he helped other students and staff understand that differences weren't deficits. They were simply different ways of experiencing and interacting with the world. Emma Sterling had become his most enthusiastic ambassador. She would tell anyone who would listen about Mr. Robert, who helped kids understand that everyone had something special to offer. She'd made friends with children she might never have connected with before. Kids who learned from her confidence and independence, just as she learned from their different perspectives and abilities. One afternoon, as Robert was helping a student with autism navigate a particularly challenging social situation, he felt a small hand slip into his. Emma had found him, as she often did, guided by the sound of his voice and the familiar rhythm of his footsteps. Mr. Robert, she said quietly, my mama told me that sometimes adults make mistakes because they're scared. Is that why she was angry that first night? Robert knelt down to her level, though he knew she couldn't see his face. She would hear the warmth in his voice, and that was what mattered. Your mama loves you very much, Emma. Sometimes when we love someone deeply, we want to protect them from anything that might hurt them. Your mama saw what she thought was someone treating you differently because of your blindness, and that scared her. But you weren't treating me different, were you? I was treating you exactly like I would treat any child who needed help finding something important to them. Emma smiled. That's what I told her. I said you didn't act like I was broken or sad. You just acted like I was Emma. Because that's exactly who you are, Robert said. You're Emma, who loves giraffes, who's excellent at math, who has the kindest heart of any 9-year-old I know, and who happens to be blind. The blindness is just one small part of everything that makes you special. Will you teach other people to understand that too? Every day, Robert promised. Every single day. As Emma skipped away to find her friends, Robert reflected on the journey that had brought him here. A moment of simple kindness, misunderstood and nearly punished, had led to understanding, growth, and a new purpose he'd never imagined. Sometimes, he thought, the light we shine into dark corners reveals more than we expect. Sometimes it shows us not just what we're looking for, but who we truly are, and who we have the potential to become. The end.